Welcome back to our summer Bootstrap webpage project. This is time for part D, and in this section we're going to add some additional content, 3 more sections to our document. So let's just get to it. We have so far a nav, which we have collapsed right now so we don't have to look at everything. We have a div for the carousel, which again we have collapsed because it's a lot of lines. And then we have a div for our footer nav down here at the bottom. What we're going to do is we're going to hit enter and scoot that footer nav down because we're going to be inserting the rest of these things in between there. So just make sure that you scoot that down out of the way a little bit so that we're putting this in the proper place. Now the reason we're doing these next 3 kind of together is because they are going to be enclosed in a container. So we're going to have a container, and that container is going to have rows and columns in it. So let me kind of show you what we're doing here. I'm going to draw a picture. I'm really good at drawing, by the way. So what we're doing is we're creating this section here. So consider, like, pretend there's this imaginary box that's going to hold these pieces. It's going to hold this row, and it's going to hold this row, and it's going to hold this bottom row. Okay, these are the 3 rows, and those rows are going to go inside a container. So we're going to have a container. Okay, I'm just going to draw this container, right? And then we're going to have one row that goes all the way across here, but it has 2 columns in it. One column that goes about, well, I think I'm going to have you go 9 out of the 12 blocks, and then one that's like 3 out of the 12 blocks. And then you're going to have another row, and that row is going to have 3 columns in it, and they'll be even, but I can't draw even, so we'll just pretend. And then we're just going to have another one down here that just has 1 column in it. So it's just 1 column inside that row. So this is basically like what we're setting up. So there's a container holding everything, and then a row with 2 columns, a row with 3 columns, and a row with 1 column. Okay. Now, if you don't have experience with Bootstrap, or if it's been a while since you've thought about Bootstrap, Bootstrap is based on a grid. So when I'm in the documentation section, if you go to Layout and Grid, it'll explain to you the Bootstrap grid. And let me just kind of go down here to where you can see. So the way it's set up, the grid layouts are going to work on certain viewports, and they're going to stack your stuff on top of each other if the page gets too little, basically, if the screen gets too little. And so typically we set it up and we say it's going to take this many columns out of the 12 that are available. So Bootstrap is based on 12. So all the way across your page is considered 12 columns. Or just think like 12 cells in Excel, sort of. Okay, so it's like 12 boxes go all the way across. So I could have 8 on this side and then 4 here. It has to add up to 12. Or I can put no numbers and then it'll just be even. Okay, this little SM has to do with where those points break. Where do they stack at? So I like to set mine to SM because that means that when it gets to a small layout, they'll start stacking. If you set it to a medium layout, then they start stacking while your screen is still pretty big. So medium layout is when you get above 768. So then when it drops down below 720, it starts stacking your stuff. So I don't like to use medium. I usually set it on small. Now let me demonstrate this. I'm going to go to this little Bootstrap playground and just try to show you kind of what's happening here. So we'll be creating a div with a class called a container. These are already named in Bootstrap, so you don't have to like think about it. So there's going to be a class called container. And I'm in a little program here that's going to automatically close my divs. And it's holding everything, right? I drew the picture that it's holding everything. It's the one that goes around everything. And then I'm going to have a row, right? So div class equals row. They make the names pretty simple, so that makes it easy. And then inside the row are 2 columns, okay? And that's div class equals, and you could put COL, and then it'll just automatically adjust, but that's not what we're going to do, okay? But here's a column of stuff and so forth. And then I'll just copy and paste that so I have 2 of them. My mouse will let me. Okay, so now I have 2 columns. All right, I'm going to hit run here so you can see. Now, see they're stacked on top of each other, but if I make my viewport bigger, if I can get in here to do it, when you don't specify anything, it does it, and you can't control where it's going to break that, right? So I'm going to set this to small. So I'm going to say small. And then like if you said 6, and then 6, then on a smaller layout, it's going, or on a bigger layout, it's going to put them side by side, half and half. If I say, 8 and 4, not 64, and I run it, see how it's gonna break differently. So this could go on even more. This first one, column of stuff and so forth, and more and more and more and more. And if I hit run, see this one still goes. So this is taking up 8 of the 12 blocks, and this is taking up 4 of the 12 blocks. Okay, so that's basically how it works. You've just got to set these up. We have to have the container to hold all of them. We have to have a row that's going to hold 2 small columns. And then we're going to need another row. So you're going to need another row, and it's going to hold 3 sets of columns. Okay, and then you're going to have another row, and it's only going to have 1 column, and that 1 column is going to go all the way across, so it can be a 12. Okay, so let's get in here so we can do it. And you could go in here if you needed to try to copy and paste these if it makes it easier for you. They are right here if you look here in the middle. Responsive classes, all breakpoints. You can kind of steal this a little bit from here, I guess you might say, but this isn't going to give them to you with any proper setup, so we'll have to do some editing. So I'm going to hit copy on this, and that's going to give me that container. So now I have a container, and I have a row, and I need 2 columns, right? Okay, and then I have another row, and this one I'm going to need 3 columns. I'm just going to copy and paste one of these so that I have a 3rd column. But we're going to set these to smalls, okay? So I'm going to put column small, and in the instructions here, I think I have this one set to 9, and this one set to 3. And then here, these are going to be even, so you would put them to, let's see, if it's 12 and we have 3 columns, then it would be 4 plus 4 is 8 plus 4 is 12. So these are all going to be 4s. Okay. All right, and then we have one more row at the bottom. I'll just copy and paste again here. Remember, these are all inside this container div, so we don't want to lose track of where we're at here. Okay, so here's another row, but it's just one. It's only got 1 column in it. And I'll just set it to 12. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we've got it set up. So we've got one row with 9 and a 3, so a big column and a little column. One that has 3 equal columns, and then one that's one big long column. And I could run this, and nothing's going to look like anything. And when we scoot over, though, it will, because it has those words in there, you can at least see. Like, so here's this one and that one. Here's the, oh, that one's stacking. Oh, my numbers don't match here. I'll make this one a 4, so this makes sense. Call 4, call 4. And that one, okay, there, just so it makes more sense here. Okay, so there's call, there's our 4, and then there's that last one. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I know it sounds kind of confusing. And when you get to a smaller viewport, see what happens is they stack on top of each other. Okay, now this is the point where if you don't like that background color that we styled back in the very beginning, you can get rid of it. For that matter, you can make it nothing and it'll just go to white at this point. So it's kind of up to you. Okay, so now I've got it set to white because I like that better. I've refreshed it, so I'm going to have to go up here and collapse my head again and collapse these other things again. And I just really think it's a good idea to collapse all this stuff because there's a bunch of things going on. Okay, so let's deal with the first row first. You're going to have words here on the left-hand side. Now, let's not worry so much right now about those words. That's something you can do whenever you've got me paused and turned off. I had in the instructions lorem ipsum generator, so you can just get some placeholder text. So we're not going to worry about what this is. I'm just going to copy some stuff here. Copy some random words to put over on this side. Okay. That way I can at least see what's going on in there, right? And then later on, you'll go in there and put your actual words in. In mine, I've got like my summer dreams. I just put a heading and 2 little paragraphs, and I'd like for you to do that same thing. Okay, and then on the right-hand column, you're going to put in a picture, your picture. So here is going to be your image. So image source equals, your picture's in your images folder. It's the picture of you. Don't forget your text alternative, which you should always have in your images. And you're also probably going to want to add some things in here. So when I hit run, it's going to put that in there. Notice it stacks and it goes underneath. If we scroll down, at some point my picture hangs off because my picture is not responsive, right? Now, I might want my picture to always either fit over there or go all the way across over here. And if you wanted to do that, and we mentioned this with the slideshow, we could add that class in here for a W100. That means a width of 100. And that's going to make your picture responsive so that it always fits in its own little box. So if you make this littler, it makes it smaller to fit in the box until it stacks, and then it'll stretch it all the way across. Okay, so that's kind of a fun little tip. If we go all the way big, then it's going to be its normal size and everything's good. Now we're going to be changing this a little bit later on, adding some spacing and so forth, but we're going to do that in a different session. So don't worry too much right now about the spacing. Okay, but anyway, so you've got your picture in there on the one side and you've got some text over here, but later on you'll add a heading, divide that into paragraphs, put your own content. Let's go ahead and deal with now the cards. The good news is you only have to make one, and then you're going to copy and paste this situation for cards. Cards are a Bootstrap component. If you go to card, you'll see lots of options. I didn't require you to go get images, but you could choose to make image cards where they have a picture at the top, which is kind of cool. For the purposes of us, I didn't want to go to that level of detail. As you scroll through here, you'll see the different card setups. Again, you're just looking for the one that you like. I'm going to go with this one and remove this button so that I have a header element and then a heading and then a paragraph. So that's this one right here. And notice it does say you can make this card header here to make that bold. So maybe that's a better one because it's going to be bold. Either way, let's copy. And I'm going to put that card in on the left. So now I have a card. It says featured in the header. What I have in your instructions is you're going to pick for each of your cards sort of a category of things that you like to do in the summer. On mine, I have fun, relaxation, and education. So you might have one or two of those. You might have sports if you play a lot of sports in the summer. You might have friends if you want to talk about your friends. You know, whatever other things you in a broad category do, because then you're going to talk in detail about it down here and give it another heading. So pick 3 things. I'll just put fun again since that's what I have here. Fun. And then whatever you're going to talk about that's fun here. Now, for the purposes of this tutorial, I am not going to make you watch me do this. Notice here is the button. This Ahref button, that's that little button that came with my card, which you can't see right now. Let me hit run. This little button, I don't want that. So we're just going to delete that hyperlink. Okay, let's hit run and go ahead and expand full screen here. And we've got that first card. Great. And again, you'll take time after you're done watching me to update your text here for this. Okay, so we've got that in there, and basically at this point, all you've got to do is copy and paste the card. Now, you got to keep your divs straight here because we have a lot of divs going on, and we don't want to mess anything up. So you can kind of see, like, this is that column, and this is the card. Okay, you want to make sure that you're just getting the card. So I'm going to collapse that card just so I can see that this is the card, and then I know these belong together. Okay, because this one goes with the column. And if you click on them, they light up. So, okay, so I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to paste. I like to put these on the next line if you didn't notice. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this last one. Okay, and then you would go through and you would set all that up. I'm going to go ahead and hit run and open this full screen so we can see, and there we go. We've got our 3 cards, and they are all spaced out equally. Okay, looks good. So that takes care of the cards. Again, later on, take time to update those. Our last row is just a 1-column row that you're going to put a list in. If you look at my example, I have a list that Tanya wants to go to and some places. So we're just going to pop in here and we're going to put in a heading, and you can choose whatever size you want. I don't know how I want to capitalize that. To visit. Okay. Anyway, so there's my heading, and then you're going to have a list. So UL, and then your stuff. So place, and then your other places. And you're going to put 3 places here on yours, just as I will have on mine, except I'm not going to type it to save us time. And don't forget to turn your list off. Okay, let's go ahead and run. And remember, if you've forgotten how to do any of your code, just pop back over to W3 Schools at any time. Just type it in. Type list. Oops, look, I have no access to look at this right now. I'm not sure what's happening there. Let's see if I type bullets. Ooh, crazy business. Could they be down? Oh, there we go. Okay. HTML lists, and there it is, and you can see your code to make a list. So if you've forgotten how to do it, just look it up. W3 Schools is there for you all the time. You're also going to style your list because you should have bullets for this. So as you can see, we have all of these different little deals here. And then we're going to be using an image. So list style image, URL, and then we need to put that in there. We're going to style our UL for that. Now, we really don't need to do that to every list in the page. There might be another list that we don't want that in. So I'm going to go to my style page, and I'm going to call this sunshines, ul.sunshines, and then I'll put this in list style image, URL, images folder, and then sunshinebullet.png is what mine is called. Sunshinebullet.png. And then I need to give this class, this is a sunshine class. Notice this is cool. It'll tell you, here's how I put that on the UL, class equals sunshines. Okay, so I'm going to pop to my UL, class equals sunshines. All right, let's run it. We should have hopefully some sunshines in there once it finally loads. There we go. All right, perfect. Okay, so now that we've got our sunshines in here, we have one more thing to do to finish this up, and that is to put a border around this bottom one, just in here. To do that, you are going to need to add a class, and it's already created for you. If we go look at the Bootstrap here and type in border, like I say, most things are already created in here, which is kind of cool. It's literally just a class called border. You can add borders to the top or the sides or whatever, and you can give your borders colors. So if you wanted that to be a specific color, I could give it a color. So for instance, let's say I wanted it to be a border, and then I wanted it to be maybe that gold color, border warning. So I'd put border space, border warning, and you just stick it on that row. So I've gone ahead and put it on here. So that class says row border, and you could also do it around the column instead if you want. Actually, we'll try that and see what that looks like here. So border, space, and then the color of the border if you want it to have a certain color. And there we go. So it's up to you. You could go in there and add those border colors if you wanted to. So let's take a look at it now. All right, looking good. Now, in the next session, we're going to go in here and fix some of the spacing of this because it'll be spaced out better, more like this one later on. But for now, just get all your content updated and then join me for the next session.